Welcome to Reposit's End of Tenancy training video presentation. Goals of this session. During this training video, we hope to provide you with a comprehensive overview of Reposit's end of tenancy process. We will begin by clearly explaining how our extension and checkout process works. We will then go through how you can easily raise end of tenancy charges via the Reposit dashboard. We will also cover all of our evidence requirements so that you can successfully raise end of tenancy charges. We will finish by discussing the various different outcomes once you have raised end of tenancy charges and the timeframes associated with each of these outcomes. Extensions. A reminder email to let you know a Reposit is coming to an end will be sent automatically to all email addresses associated with the Reposit account 1 month, 1 week, and 1 day before the Reposit end date. You then will have 24 days after the end date on our system to extend the Reposit if the tenancy is continuing past the initial term. You can extend a tenancy at any time, but the maximum time frame you can extend this by is 24 months at a time. There are no agent or landlord costs associated with extending a Reposit on our system. However, every 12 months the tenant is in the property, Reposit will automatically collect a £30 annual admin fee from the tenant. This is not something you need to deal with. It is completely our burden to chase. If the tenancy is renewing on a periodic basis, we would recommend extending for either 6 months or for 1 year at a time. Remember, if the tenant only stays on for a shorter period, you can always check out a Reposit before the end date. Checkouts. A reminder email to let you know a Reposit is coming to an end will be sent automatically to all email addresses associated with the Reposit account 1 month, 1 week, and 1 day before the Reposit end date. Once the tenancy has checked out on our system, you will have 24 days to submit end of tenancy charges. If the tenancy has ended prior to the end date on our system and you have conducted your checkout report, you will need to notify us by checking out the Reposit on the system. You do this by simply logging into your Reposit account and searching for this tenancy and then following the on-screen instructions. You have 24 days after the end date to raise the end of tenancy charges. Please note that if you don't check out the Reposit until the 24-day period has started counting down, you will only have the remaining days left to raise any end of tenancy charges. The key takeaway for extensions and checkouts is that you are reminded via end of tenancy email notifications a month, a week, and a day before a Reposit is due to end. After the Reposit has ended, you then have 24 days to retrospectively extend a Reposit or to raise end of tenancy charges. Failure to do either of these things within the first 24 days will result in the Reposit automatically closing. End of tenancy charges. Reposit covers pretty much anything a traditional deposit covers you for, apart from a few minor exceptions that you can see here. Reposit also covers you for up to 8 weeks worth of rent when the deposit schemes are capped at 5 weeks. You can only submit end of tenancy charges once the tenant has vacated the property. Please add all claim items up front while submitting end of tenancy charges, as once you have filled out the online form, you cannot add other items later. Please note, you can raise end of tenancy charges by simply logging into your Reposit account and searching for the tenancy. You will then need to click on the Reposit and follow the on-screen instructions. Before the tenancy, you need to make sure you are getting the tenants to sign an AST in England and Wales or a PRT in Scotland. It is essential an inventory is taken and that this is either signed or there is proof it was sent to the tenant. Before processing a Reposit, you should also make sure the tenant has passed our referencing criteria. Our criteria is in line with all major referencing agencies in the UK and can be found in the Reposit Partner Guide. During the tenancy, the only thing you need to do is make sure a midterm inspection is completed every 12 months. At the end of the tenancy, the evidence you need to upload obviously depends on the type of charges you are wishing to raise. Please see here different evidence requirements for different types of charges. More detailed information on what evidence is required can be found in your Reposit Partner Guide. Summary of timeframes. From our existing data, between 60 and 70% of tenancies end without any end of tenancy charges at all. This is in line with the deposit scheme's national average, which is a great proof point that not paying a deposit does not impact tenant behaviour. Please also see the average days taken to pay out end of tenancy charges with different end of tenancy outcomes. There are 4 potential outcomes once you have checked out a Reposit. The first is where there are no end of tenancy charges at all. In this case, all you are required to do is check out the Reposit on our system. Please note, even if you don't action this yourself, The Reposit will automatically check out 24 days after the end of the Reposit on our system. Outcome 2 is when you have raised end of tenancy charges and the tenant accepts these charges. As soon as end of tenancy charges are raised, tenants will have 7 days to accept or dispute. If they are accepted, we will aim to forward on these funds within 2 to 3 working days. If the tenant disputes within the 7 days, we will pass the claim on to adjudication. To dispute, the tenant will need to pay a £60 adjudication fee. This acts as a deterrent against the tenants disputing against fair end of tenancy charges. We will refund the tenant the £60 if the verdict of the adjudication is in their favour. The final possible outcome at the end of the tenancy is if you raise end of tenancy charges and the tenant does not accept or dispute within their 7-day limit. If the tenant was to completely ignore our notifications, on day 7, they automatically accept the full amount of the claim. Our adjudication process takes a maximum of 14 days, which is a lot quicker than the deposit schemes. We use a third-party adjudicator called Independent Adjudication Services Limited. More detail regarding our adjudication process can be found in the Reposit Partner Guide. Just like with the deposit schemes, the verdict of ADR is final and can only be challenged in a court of law. As mentioned throughout this training video, the most important resource is your Reposit Partner Guide. Information on Reposit's end of tenancy process can be found in this document. Thank you for listening. We hope this was helpful in educating you on how our end of tenancy process works.